This is the Investing News Network. I'm Georgia Williams, and we're here in Toronto for the annual PDAC conference. Joining me today is Brett Marsh, President and CEO of Spartan Metals. Nice to see you again, Brett.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It's nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks.
PDAC, this is the third day. How's it going?
Yeah, it's been nice. It's been really busy. We've had a lot of good response back at the booth, and a lot of interested folks coming to hear the Spartan story.
Absolutely. It's exciting times.
Yeah, it sure is.
I was wondering if we could start with your ticker symbol and the exchanges that you trade on.
Sure. So we're traded on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the ticker symbol W, which is the chemical symbol for tungsten. We are on the OTC under SPRMF, and we're also on the Frankfurt Exchange with J03.
Nice.
Yeah.
Spartan Metals is a tungsten-focused company working in Nevada. Can you tell us about your project and what it's like working in the jurisdiction, which just ranked the top jurisdiction in the world on the Fraser Institute?
They did, and it's well deserved. So we're in Nevada. So we're in the eastern portion of Nevada, basically just outside of the town of Ely, south of Elko, about 2 hours. And it's been really wonderful. So it's a well deserved acknowledgement on their part that the state is really pro mining, pro exploration, and they're very helpful, right? And they help us do things the right way as well. So it's very refreshing.
Yeah, you landed in the perfect place.
Yeah, it was done on purpose. We knew that Nevada was a great place to work from previous experience, and it's actually been better than we expected.
Last time we spoke in New Orleans in November, the company was about to release some news, and in December you announced that you discovered 2 new tungsten, silver, and rubidium exploration targets at your Eagle project. What does that mean for the company, and how do you plan to move ahead with this?
Yeah, it's big news for the company because initially we had thought that we were only looking at the veins within tungstonium. And what turns out after we did our soil sampling program that we had potentially new discoveries associated with those tungsten veins. So it could actually turn out that we have a tungsten skarn potential plus carbonate replacement deposit, which could actually bring in very valuable minerals such as silver at high concentrations in addition to the tungsten that we have at very high grades.
And it's nice to have that silver potential because silver is doing so great.
Yeah, silver's doing great, tungsten's doing great, and it's and they're both they kind of trade in different ways, so it kind of gives us some exposure to different investors in different markets.
Yeah. In early February, the company announced the staking of a new land package, which features a past-producing tungsten mine. How does Yellow Jacket Mine complement your existing portfolio?
Yeah, it's a fantastic inclusion for us because when we were doing the initial field work in the fall, we noticed that there was a lot of alteration. The Yellow Jacket Mine was there and it was available, and so we put it into the portfolio basically to make sure that we had the district scale that we think that we have claimed. So we wanted to make sure we had enough land. The interesting thing about the Yellow Jacket Mine itself is it's past producing at about 1%. And so we've actually seen that 1% number be pretty consistent throughout the Eagle package. And so we're very confident that as we get further along in our exploration, we'll have excellent grades that come with that.
Yeah, and 1% is a great grade to have.
Yeah, and it's very valuable right now as far as tungsten goes because the market's very strong.
Yeah. Tell us about your relationship with the U.S. Department of War and the U.S. Department of Energy and how these may help Spartan obtain funding and supporting America's need, for critical minerals domestically.
Yeah, so in the past, I've worked directly with the Department of Defense, then now Department of War, and spent time directly in the Pentagon talking about critical metal projects and really getting a chance to understand the funding process. So we know that really well, and we still have the connections to get into and set up those meetings as when the time comes. Department of Energy, I worked with directly as in kind of a research capacity with our project, and so those folks and some of the leaders from the Department of Energy have actually called to understand, learn about the project, learn about the tungsten, learn about the rubidium potential, and just understand and talk with us how they could help us progress. And it's interesting from the Department of Energy standpoint because, they typically had in the past worked very far downstream with processing plants, what they were funding and such. Now they're really got the mandate to go as far upstream as they can. So we're leveraging that relationship to see if there's something that can be done there.
Yeah, it's nice to know that they're covering the whole value chain.
It is, and it's nice to see that they have the mandate and they have the funding to do it, and they're really being, I would call it aggressive in trying to get these projects, through the pipeline, right? Get them identified and really start getting them into production.
Yeah, the sooner the better.
Yeah, that's right.
Aside from drill results, what other catalysts can investors be looking forward to this year?
That's really going to be the biggest thing. But we're also, we still have the outstanding metallurgical results from our tailings and the work that we have associated with that. And so it's definitely going to be thrilling, because that information from the tailings will give us a glimpse into what we can expect from performance as far as the drill core and the mine itself once we make it that far.
And can you speak to a little bit about the tailings? Because it's sort of like, what was once waste is now another man's treasure.
Well, this was producing in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and so their processing methods were not as sophisticated as we have today. So there's a lot of material that they were unable to process just because they didn't have the technology to do it. And now we have some intercepts in that program where 0.4% tungsten, which is relatively good grade in any resource today. So we think that there's value there, in addition to the silver that was left behind, which is multiple grams per ton. So there's potential value there that we can feed back into the exploration program.
It ends up being like a little bonus.
Yeah, and it's nice, and we can, it's not a very attractive thing on the ground, so it's nice for us to be able to clean it up and reclaim it and revegetate the areas.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, that miners are now focused on doing the best practices and, making sure they're leaving the environment as the same way they found it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's definitely what we're going to try to do, and that's going to be our focus, is to be as responsible as we can.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, it was lovely to catch up with you again.
Yeah,
and I look forward
you.
to speaking with you again soon.
Yeah, let's do it.
Once again, I'm Georgia Williams, and that was Brett Marsh, President and CEO of Spartan Metals.